Members taking a peek at this key economic data points coming up. We have your retail sales expecting on AREC, corporate electrified materials finalized agreement for 911,000 rare earth and critical mineral recycling. On MBOT strengthens global IP portfolio of newly granted patent in China's significant development. DGLY, that's some significant progress in backlog
Good morning.
and notable contract wins. WNW Company Limited in Shenzhen, Zeno Wucheng Tech, corporate strategic partnership on WNW. On SDST, and that's in pricing of 4.3 million under written public offering.
Morning, Carl.
On QUBT, quantum computing ships first commercial.
Well, you know what? I personally, Mister, I actually like the gap down on several names today. The only name that's actually not gapping down that I can see is AMD. Love, love, love the change in character. If you watched the kind of like my daily recap yesterday, you'll have noticed AMD was the first name on my screen. Really love the pickup in volume. Love the way it reclaimed the 200 simple moving average. I don't want to get too excited, but then obviously, the market gap's down a little bit, and AMD's already the first name out to highs. I don't want to say that this name's going to go on a big run, but if there's a name out there that I do have some confidence in to potentially go on a really nice renewed uptrend, it is a name like AMD. Yeah, I like it. Nice to see. Really, really nice to see. And then as it relates to Tesla, I like the gap down today because you're not then chasing a gap up, and you don't need to do like some 5-minute opening range break, chasing a gap up. It's just easy to buy it as it's going through prior day pivot. Obviously, for me, the pivot is 335.50, but if it can get going over that, that should be pretty interesting. Yeah, as it relates to Bitcoin, with Bitcoin, it's a little bit weak today, and it's kind of giving back all of the move yesterday. We'll see if it can kind of find its legs here, but MSTR was fairly weak. While coin is actually still holding up pretty dang well. Slight little pullback here. Nothing to really be concerned about, in my opinion. Looks pretty good still. Yeah, I had that MMYT short nailed. Yeah, I mean, guys, when something is living below the 200 simple moving average like this is kind of what happens. This is why, I even mentioned it. Dave, are you in the room? Out of curiosity. Sorry, dude. There's just too many people for me to actually remember everybody. But I think I don't know if you are or if you aren't, but I feel like that's one of the few places where I did talk about it. Either way, it doesn't matter. MMYT was one of those names that I was talking about. LTH is another one on the short side, and Geo. The market's just been kind of tracking higher and higher. And oh, cool. Yeah, I thought so, Dave. I was about to say, dude, I'm going nuts. Yeah, Dave P. Yeah. Just because your full name, I guess that might be your last name is completely on there. So don't want to say it threw me off, but yeah, just wait for it to reclaim the 20 with Tesla. Don't do anything crazy with it. Just wait for Tesla to clear. I mean, you could see exactly where this rejected the 20 simple moving average. And then it's just been a few little days of living underneath the 20, little wick, right up against that level. Small gap down today, nothing crazy. The level is 335.50. Don't argue with it. Wait till it gets above, size in properly. when it happens, and then, you stop at low a day. Simple enough. Don't overthink it. And yesterday's high is effectively the 20. The 20 simple moving average right now is 332.95. And, it's technically going to be a little bit lower today because price is gapping down. So, it'd probably be like 331.5 or something like that. But just let it take out the most recent high. Obviously, we're right above the gap down day and the high volume day. So, that level has been reclaimed, but let it reclaim the 20 and this most recent high. You're new to my methodology for scanning for stocks and trading. Is there a list of things I do, scans, to identify what you are interested in? Yeah. First things first, I try to identify the leading groups in the market, right? So what are the top, 20, 30, 40 groups in the market? That's the first thing I try to identify, just so I'm on to the stocks that are hanging up best. And they're hanging out the best because they're up more than their peers when the market's up, and they're down less than their peers when the market's down, meaning their peers, other industry groups. So that's first things first. And the reason that they're doing that is because they're undergoing institutional accumulation, or they're not being sold when the market's going down. Secondly, I try to identify the best technical patterns within those industry groups, which is just very easy. Something as simple as good above the 200 simple moving average, bad below. And then finally, if a stock has a really nice technical pattern, I take it one step deeper and say, do they have good earnings and sales, right? Not only are they in a good group, so a bunch of these stocks are looking pretty good, right? Like, let's say semiconductors, right? There's 30 semiconductors. Well, I don't just want to own any of them, even though the whole group might look good, but how do I get myself into the best few that institutions are most likely to be attracted to? Well, they've got good earnings and sales because that's what institutions are buying. So, then if I'm like, notice that, okay, semiconductors are a top 10 group, right? There's, something like KLAC, LRCX, TSM, ASML, NVIDIA, AVGO, CRDO, et cetera, and then you say to yourself, which of these have the best fundamentals? Because if they all got very similar technical patterns, like let's look at KLAC, right? And so you get the bottom, you get a little higher low, you get a little consolidation, you get a move above the 200, you get another little consolidation where it puts in a bottom, puts in a double bottom on 530, and then starts to break out, right? So if this is what I'm looking at one day, and then LRCX, this is what I'm looking at on this day, and it looks very identical. And then ASML, and that's what I'm looking at, another day. And then TSM, this is what I'm looking at on this day. And AVGO, and this is what I'm looking at over here at the same time. All of a sudden, you're starting to say to yourself, well, holy shit, these are all pretty much in an uptrend. But how do I differentiate between which I want to own and which I don't? Well, the only difference between them, since they're all in the same group, is which have the best fundamentals, right? And then that's going to put you onto the best stock. For the longest time, NVIDIA had the best fundamentals, right? They're growing the fastest, best earnings and sales, most free cash flow, the backbone of the biggest theme, etc. Hopefully that makes sense. So first steps first, you got to identify the leading groups. And there's like, depending on where you look, you're going to, have like 140 groups to 197, depending where you look. What I would just tell you is just focus on the top 40. Yeah, of course. Yeah, you want to look at past earnings too, because you want to see earnings acceleration. Earnings acceleration. If earnings are accelerating and they're in a good group, then stocks can make a super huge move. Yeah, market surge is fine. Deep view is really good. Looking at groups is FinViz is fine too. What do I think of Verve? I think Verve just got bought out by Lilly, if I'm not mistaken. VERV. So you're not going to be able to trade this thing. It's no longer tradable. It's just going to barcode up here. Leave it alone. Data dog. Let's take a peek. It's just, all these stocks, there are stocks that are already above their 200 simple moving average. Let it establish itself above the 200 simple moving average. You know what ESTC kind of reminds me of? You put in a low, you grind right up to the 200, and then you could end up failing. ESTC did something very similar, right? You put in a low, you grind right back up to the 200. Somebody asked me about it, and then like the very next day, it's getting its ass kicked. So that's why I always tell people, let it get above the 200, establish itself above the 200, and then you got something to work with, right? Let it do something like coin, right? Let it get above the 200, let it start to trend and consolidate above the 200, and then now you've got, some levels to work with. But yeah, as it relates to Verve, it's untradeable. They just got bought out, if I'm not mistaken, by Lilly. So you gotta just leave it alone. Yeah, Google looks fine. Google's starting to get back above the 200. I don't personally love the setup. It just moves a little bit slow here for me to get too excited about this, but it's building higher lows. Every time it comes down now to the 20, it's getting bought back up. It held the 200. I mean, it looks fine, but nothing that it doesn't get me excited. Google doesn't get me too excited. Apple doesn't get me too excited. Even Microsoft doesn't get me too excited. Not that I don't like Microsoft. It's just, right off the bottom, straight to new all-time high, zero consolidation. Guys, these frozen rope patterns, at any moment they could start to give way, and I don't want to be in that. Yeah, Reddit. I mentioned this one in the Discord first thing in the morning. I really like how this thing's starting to get through this little neckline and back above the 200. Not anything for me just yet, and could just very well be that this thing starts to trend from here. But, if it goes up and then consolidates and goes sideways, that would be just fine too. So nice to see. This one kind of caught my eye last week, or maybe even a few days ago, where every day, it was kind of going up. And even on the days where the market was acting choppy, Reddit was up. Yeah, AMD was the first name I mentioned yesterday during my kind of after hours, my after hours watch list or after hours video. It was the first stock that caught my attention yesterday. It's the first one worth talking about. One of these nights. Yeah, I mean, it's a sign of relative strength. But let the market, make sure before you buy something that the market itself is also going up. Don't buy something when the market's going down. How do I like Zscaler? I love Zscaler, but it's not viable here. I thought the spot that I wanted was 217, and I wanted an inside day here. Right? I was like, okay, straight off the bottom, and then right back up into that 217 level where it rejected 3, 4, 5 times. I was like, just give me an inside day. And an inside day never came. And then it just kind of kept going. And now we're extended from the 50 simple moving average for me to buy this thing. So, in fact, hold on. Let me just pull this up. Yeah, Zscaler's 10.83 times its average true range from the 50. It's just not going to happen for me. So I'm just not buying. I'm just not a buyer of Zscaler up here. It's just way too extended. Like I said, 217 was the level, almost $100 lower. Yeah, Ernesto, I just talked about Zscaler. I like it. Or sorry, about Reddit. I like it, but let it set itself up a little bit better. It's doing the first step, which is getting back above the 200 simple moving average. It's a great first step, but that's all it really is. Step number one is done. I don't know that Tesla's at the make it or break it point. Honestly, I think Tesla just looks just fine. Had a really really nice rebound, Gabo. I think now it just needs to clear 335 before we get too excited about it. But yeah, I mean, it had this humongous washout, big, big, big volume, and now just trying to turn back up. Really nice, what I like to call tennis ball action, right? It didn't just like go down and break the 200 and then just consolidate down there. It broke the 200 and instantly rebounded. That's not super bearish. It's pretty bullish that it got right back up above the 200 and basically right back to the level where it broke down from. What ATR from the 50 SMA do I consider extended? It depends what you're asking me. If you mean at what point won't I buy the stock anymore? At more than 4 times its average true range from the 50. At what point do I start selling some? At 7 times its average true range from the 50. And then every one ATR above 7, I trim some more. So at 8, I like to trim some more. At 9, I like to trim some more. At 10, I'm trimming some more. At 11, I'm trimming some more, all the way to 12 and 13. And at that point, I'm basically completely out of the name. Yeah, CEG looked good. I actually thought it was viable yesterday, to believe it or not. I don't mind this move down. This thing got so extended. This move down. Yes, it was on a pickup in volume, but then it, stopped going lower, started to digest. Super, super nice inside day on Friday. Very, very tight. And then a break above that range yesterday and nice follow through. And it looks like we're hanging in there pretty well this morning. CEG looks pretty dang good to me and not super extended. And then same with VST has been really nice lately too. Superb, superb. Yeah, Roku. Well, I own. I don't really care to own Roku. Nice earnings estimates going forward. You see like this big green bar, big green bar, big green bar, big green bar, big green bar. I mean, nice accumulation going down on there on the volume, Dave. But I own Arc already, so I don't feel like I gotta own Roku personally. This will just Kathy owns so much Roku that I could just let this go without me. This name doesn't get me too excited to own, but it'll definitely help my Arc long. So, I mean, it's like, do you really want to own Roku? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. I just don't care enough about Roku to be like, gotta own that. Yep. Need to have that. Need to find my way into Roku. It's the most important name of the year. Everybody on this Reddit this morning, y'all are making me nervous. You're the third person that asked about it, Roger, but just let it establish itself above the 200 simple moving average. It's not doing anything wrong. It's been showing really nice relative strength recently. Just let it set itself up above the 200 simple. Looks pretty good, in my opinion. Can be honest with you, it looks pretty good. Holy shit, Sedge. Holy scannolies, dude. What the? Oh my sun run. Oh my goodness. Holy shit. This is why you do not try to guess at a bottom. Guys, when there is a stock below the 200 simple moving average, don't give a shit what your opinions are and how low you think the stock has gone. When you stock breaks at 200 and it's below the 200 and it's just been trending below the 200, this is what I mean about letting establish itself above the 200. Just because it got above the 200 here doesn't mean it gave you any kind of clean setup to buy. And just because it got above the 200 here doesn't mean there's any kind of clean setup to buy or here. And this thing was below the 200 for forever. And it broke the 200 at 246. And it hasn't been able to establish itself above. And here you are waking up at $36.50, which is effectively a new low. It is a new low. Yeah, I saw that. But again, guys, you just don't want to own stocks below their 200, period. Everybody likes to use their brain and say, oh, it's gone down too much. It's gone down too much. And it's the worst thing you can do. It's honestly probably the number one worst thing you can do to your trading is assume that something's gone down too low. Yeah, I thought MSTR was a bit odd. I even tweeted it and I put it in quotes, if Bitcoin starts to pull and roll over, MSTR looks shortable in my opinion. This looks like a little bear flag here. Just, keeping it honest, doesn't look all that good. So thought I'd throw that in there. Doesn't look all that great. I'm not sure what to make about it, to be honest with you. Bitcoin had a nice day yesterday and MSTR was weak. And then now overnight, Bitcoin had a pretty weak day, down about 3%. And MSTR gapping down. I don't really want to just chase a short, but yeah. I'm not really into the business of chasing shorts either. But yeah, MSTR, pretty heavy weakness yesterday. I don't know. Looks shortable. Again, I always go back to, I understand Bitcoin is somewhat innovative, but nobody uses it. That's just the reality. There's 1,200 of us in this chat right now. I don't think anybody here uses Bitcoin in their daily life to do anything at any point, at any time of their life right now. Like, you might own it on, Coinbase, or you might own it on whatever account you got, but you don't use it. GLJ Research, isn't that like Gordon Johnson or whatever? He's the biggest bear ever. A 1 cent price target. Oh no. He's a super bear though, dude. He's also got like a price target in the teens or something for Tesla. So yeah. Retailers are starting to accept it for payment, Amanda. I believe it. Have you used it for payment? That's the real question. I don't know many people who do. In fact, the number is 0. If I had Bitcoin, it'd be for hodling. And since I'm not into that life, I've got one Bitcoin lost on a phone somewhere back in college. One Bitcoin that I bought at $1,700, and the phone is lost somewhere. I don't know where the hell it went, but I owned one Bitcoin back in college at 1,700, and I bought it at a Bitcoin ATM. How about that? But I no longer own it. Yeah, see, that's the thing. Nobody spends their Bitcoin. People just hodl it. Like, it's not actually used for payment, like, ever, really. And the last guy that did that and bought some pizza, he's living under regret every day of his life. Nelson, am I mainly a short seller or swing long, day trade long? Nelson, brother, I would suggest you go and watch my interview with Traderline. There was just one released on YouTube with Traderline. I see you're on YouTube. So go to Trader Lion and watch that interview, and that'll give you a little bit better of an idea. But I'm mostly swing trader long. Well, I mean, I swing trade both directions, long and short. But in this environment, mostly long, and in February, March, mostly short. Really only short. But yeah, I'm a swing trader. What do I think about Pepsi, PEP? It looks terrible. This looks absolutely god awful. Thanks, Nelson. Yeah, I appreciate that. It's a little bit extended here on the downside. A little bit. I like the consolidation, but it's a bit extended. That's what I would say. It's just a touch extended. I mean, I think it can work. It's nice and tight. So if you're going to take it, let it be breaking these lows, like 129, 130, 129, something like that. But it's just a little extended from the 200 here to short. Moves back in towards the 200, I think would be even better. Nike. Yeah, this one's a little bit better if it re-breaks the 50. Apple's another good one against declining moving averages. Nobody wants to hear that, of course. Who knows? I mean, Apple's been showing relative weakness for a long time now. No, I got stopped out of shop the next day. Yeah, I don't hang out in names below low of day. I managed it about as best as I could. Shopify, I had 16,000 shares at 113.06. So right in here. I sold a little bit same day, 3,500 shares when it started to close pretty weak at 114.96. So right here. And then the next day I got stopped out 111.16 down here. Somewhere in there. In the morning, it looks like 9:57. So right in here. And yeah, I didn't have to sit through this nonsense. That would have been way too painful with the size I had. So yeah, no, when stocks break low of day, I'm not just hanging out in them. If I were to trade GH, this is a nice little flag here, right underneath all-time highs. Needs to get powering over 50.5. That's what I'd say. Needs to get going over 50.5 for it to be good. Well, I like the gap down, but there's nothing really on my radar right now that I absolutely love. Yeah, Carl, there's nothing really on my radar. Tesla potentially, watching energy here, potentially. Some gold stocks still act pretty good, but gold's not acting all that amazing. I mean, thanks, James. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I always try my best, man. You just focus on stocks and leading groups, clean technical setups that you understand, stocks with good earnings and sales. right? Keep it very simple. How do you manage risk? How much of something do you buy? You're trading your biggest when you're trading your best, and the market's super healthy. And, that's pretty much it. I like to keep it incredibly simple, although, it seems a little complex for, if for maybe a newer person, but once you kind of click all the little puzzle pieces in place, it definitely makes sense. What about Hims? Everybody loves Hims too. I like that it was over $60 yesterday at one point. Still just effectively in this range. I don't personally love it. I think it's hanging out just fine. Kind of like a cup and a handle. I think it looks pretty good. I just don't like this distribution bar. I don't know what I would do with it right now, honestly. I'm like indifferent. Volatility has just been, big move up, big moves down, big move up, big move down, big move up, and then smashed all the way back down and just chopping everybody's head off in here. So, I don't know that I like to be part of that crap. It's too much nonsense. Yeah, apps didn't really do anything, huh? You know, I don't know. Has to take out yesterday's highs, 505. Looks like we're high. Yeah, 505. We'll see. Don't know that I love it. Don't really hate it though either. It depends. It depends. Very rarely do I buy. Now, if something's just breaking over prior day high and the market's pushing, sometimes I'll just buy it right over prior day high. Oftentimes, especially in the last like 10 days, I've been just waiting about 15 minutes off the open because you'll probably have noticed we've been getting like these big ramp ups and then like, full retraces of that ramp up, and just kind of failure from there. So, don't really want to get caught, um, you know, chasing a stock in this environment. So just been being patient for the open and then kind of coming in if things are finding support off of rising moving averages on a smaller time frame, and then coming back in there to rebuy it. So, but yeah, I've already gotten caught too many times, buying a little break over prior day high in the last 2 weeks, and then things just kind of failing. So yeah, I like the range IBKR is building, and I like it. I like both the IBKR and ALAB because they're in the right groups, RC. They're in the right groups. It's like you're getting banks and semiconductors acting well. So again, there's not just ALAB, it's ALAB and a dozen other names, and it's not just IBKR, it's IBKR and 4, 5, 6 other banking names. So it's the right groups, which is really, really important. That's half the battle. Again, do the groups go on to work? None of us know, but those groups are in uptrends. So, if they're in uptrends and you're focused on the long, you're bound to have a bit more success, trying to time one of your long entries. Yeah, 2, 3 times. Yeah, 2 or 3 times is the maximum number of times that, I will try and take a long. If you're buying it and you're getting stopped out twice or even 3 times, you just probably aren't buying it properly, or it's the environment or something. Something's going on, right? It might not be the stock you're watching if you're watching a stock in a good group. Yeah, Dash is nice. I tried Dash like down here at 110 or something like that and got stopped out. Of course, we're higher. One of these nights. Yeah, I had JP Morgan too, gapping down a little bit today. Very annoying. And yeah, still in the range. 269.52. Actually, let me make sure I set my alert. What do I think about MBIS? A bit extended. A bit extended still. You know, I could tell you exactly how extended it is. It's still 8 times its average true range from the 50. What needs to happen for toast? One, I would like to see it back above the 20. So starting with maybe a move over 42.86. It did the really nice thing, which is it held this high volume close and it's just building out a new range. Maybe a little cheat spot over today's highs could be one. And then number two, it just needs to take out these highs. It'll end up being like a little flat pivot. If it can get back up to 45, give us one more little pullback and then a ramp through, 45 and a half, that'll look really, really nice. Right? Then you're just basically break out into new all-time highs. That would look nice. Those little arrows, those are MACD histograms. So it's basically just MACD, but a histogram. What was that in crude oil? One of these nights. Yeah, I was looking at iron. I mentioned this one, iron, hut, and cores. But again, these are going to be pretty Bitcoin dependent, right? If Bitcoin's not acting well, then it's likely these don't do all that much either. Yeah, ATAT's fine. It's just stuck in a range here. Just stuck in a range. The spot that seems pretty important is this high volume earnings day, 32.86. RC, I appreciate that, man. Or lady. Can't say for sure with the name, but I appreciate you. Thank you. I had a lot of fun doing it, honestly. I'm sure you guys have noticed that I love doing what I do. So greatest career on earth, honestly. Imagine getting to build a fresh puzzle every single day of your life. All right, let's see. Yeah, Verve got acquired by Lilly. This can't be right. ACXP is up 2,200%. That can't be right. Yeah, that's not right. Just checking. Yeah, Iron's one of those. Yeah, some of these names, they're kind of they're like Bitcoin adjacent, but they're also, like a hut. They're like a data center provider. Don't know exactly what the hell they do, but they're doing something data center related. What is that odd volume in crude oil here? Yeah, not really noticeable on the hourly, but we got 50 minutes to go, and there's some pretty big volume coming in there. It's more noticeable on the 10-minute. Not exactly sure who the hell that was. Pretty oddball candle at this time of the morning. But who knows? Yeah, Course is like a couple businesses. Yeah, Course has a few things going on. QBTS, cured cancer, or wait, QUBT, should I say? Look at this thing. Oh, that espresso didn't even help. One of these nights. Yeah, I don't really have much to do this morning. Sidelines mostly for me.
On BNRG and us expected implementation of 5-for-1 reverse split. That's on BNRG.
Nope, no. It's not better to start with day trading and move to swing trading. Day trading is the hardest kind of trading you can do. Swing trading, in my opinion, is a whole lot easier, a lot more stress free. You don't have to come up with a bright idea every day of your life to make money. Um, I hear that a lot from people like, oh, I've got a small account, so I just want to grow it as a day trader, and then I'll switch to swing trading. The reality is you're not going to just make that like mental switch, right? They're two totally different types of trading. They require a completely different position size. They require a different mentality. You're holding on to your stocks. You're trying to hold them against ascending moving averages versus day trading. You're going to cash every single day. It's the most stressful kind of trading. Yeah, I hear it all the time that like, oh, I'm just going to start as a day trader, grow my account, and then I'll start swinging. It doesn't work like that. And again, you learn a lot of bad habits as a day trader that are hard to shake once you start swing trading. So that's the reality. Nobody really loves hearing that reality, but it's the truth. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, day trading is just you're trading breaking news, right? You're trading momentum movers, and every day it's something different. Where swing trading, you're really trying to focus in on where's money going, where's money leaving, and you're aligning yourself with the best groups, right? With day trading, you're not always trading the best groups. You're trading, whatever is today's flavor of the day, biotech potentially, right? And they could be in the worst group, but they just happen to be today's flavor of the day. Meanwhile, you're missing stocks that are going up a few 100% over the course of a few months, right? And just stress free trying to sit in those, as long as they're trending. But again, to each their own. It's just not easier to day trade, no matter what people might tell you. What do I think about NN? Super thin, $15 million a day, very quick mover. This thing had this really, really nice consolidation down here. It actually had a few of them. So like before it moved the first time, it had this little breakout, and then it did the exact same thing up here. And then now it's a little sloppier, I don't know what I would do with this thing. Probably nothing, to be honest with you. Just too thin. Could keep going, but is it too late to jump into ERJ? Um, This thing had a few nice setups. Once this thing snuck back over and consolidated over the 200 simple moving average, there was a nice little flat base. Here was another little clean digestion. This was a bigger one, which led to a bigger move. Here was another little tight one. You want these things as they're nice and tight against their moving averages. Here's another little flag, and then you get the earnings gap up. Really nice right in here. Little choppy, but ERJ has been in a big uptrend. I mean, it looks fine right now, but there's no setup here just yet. Like, where do you buy this thing exactly where you're going to limit risk? I don't know. That's the $1 million question. Yeah, the 20-day dollar volume and the 5-day dollar volume. Yeah, those are just custom scripts. Yeah, I've been mentioning RRC, EQT, CRK, NAR. CRK new high and after hour, or new high this morning, 27. You know, this CRK had a beautiful setup in here. Just tried shaking everybody out, of course, but even before this thing went. Just right there. Nice little move up, nice little flat base. You know, EQT was kind of annoying. I own this thing twice. So once I bought it out of this little flag right here, when it got over its 200, got shaken out the next day, only to then see it go. And then I bought it right here on this day. And then I finally got stopped out. Oh, I think like right over here. And then, you know, look at it now. That's how it goes. You know, it definitely was buyable potentially yesterday, but, you know, I didn't buy it. Maybe even the day before. But yeah, there's several names. There are several names in that space that look pretty dang good. I don't really look at weekly charts too much. If the daily looks really good, I can just kind of envision what the weekly looks like in my brain. I just zoom out on charts on the daily. RCAT super choppy, but RCAT will move with, and it looks like this thing's gapping down this morning, so it's back at 890s, like down. Oh, whoa, oh, oh, oh. Oh, 46.75 million dollar offering. What I was going to tell you is, you know, don't trade these dog shit stocks too much. And RCAT's kind of one of those, you know, they're kind of poopy, no real earnings and sales. And that's why they just announced 1 minute ago an offering in real time. Oh, Victor, you just jinxed it, brother. But the other one that'll move with it is UMAC. But yeah, RCAT. Nice to have caught that in real time. I was like, oh, this thing's kind of down a little bit. And then sure enough, taking a shit. Yeah, so we'll see if this offering gets bought back up. You know, a lot of these stocks have been doing offerings, whether it's like Oklos or Qubit or IONQ or Rigetti. And these turds just don't go away. It just kind of speaks to the environment that we're in. You know, totally cool. You know, it doesn't bother me. But, you know, if this offering gets kind of absorbed and then maybe it can go higher, how can you spot stocks like RCAT consistently? Here's the thing, you don't want to. You don't want to spot stocks like RCAT consistently. These aren't real great companies that make awesome money. You want to be in stocks that at least make money so that you don't get caught in some shit like this. You wake up in the morning, you're like, oh, cool, I bought it here at 8:30, and then all of a sudden you're at 9:50, and then the next morning the shit's right back at your average. You want to be in stocks that make money. When you're in stocks that don't make money, you know, you go to sleep with this thing at 9:20 and you wake up with it at $8. It sucks. So, you know, focus on companies that have real earnings and sales. Oh, how, to avoid? Well, I just answered the question. I just answered the question. Make sure that they make money. If they don't make money, what's the I forget who said it, but if it don't make money, it don't make sense. All right? If it don't make money, it don't make sense. So if they don't have earnings and sales, then guys, it just is what it is. They don't have earnings and sales, then they don't have a product that they're really selling and they're still a science experiment. That's not to say they can't make a big move. Stocks can always make big moves. But if you want to be in a stock that gives you duration, do you want to be in this? Of course, a lot of people will tell you yes, but catching that's very difficult. Or do you want to be, or do you want to be in that? I want to be in this, right? I don't want to be in stocks that round trip their moves until they go through a full stage analysis, right? Move up, stage three. That you just this one played the full cycle, which was gorgeous. But all right, guys, gotta go, gotta get ready for stream. I appreciate you guys all for being here. You guys are awesome, and I will see you guys in 23 hours. Trading well. Yeah, IBDs are good, Abdullah. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Cheers.